It's my pleasure to welcome you to this edition of the program. My name is Dennis Adignoye. The 73rd session of the United Nations General Assembly, currently holding in New York, United States, has in attendance 193 world leaders who are scheduled to give addresses at various times. 20th on this list is Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari, who will also be giving an address. This is the fourth outing of the president at the global meeting of world leaders. The theme of the assembly is making the United Nations relevant to all people, global leadership and shared responsibilities for peaceful, equitable and sustainable societies. In our discussion segments, we shall have two guests who will examine the critical issues that will be coming up at the General Assembly, especially on the part of Mr. President. That is what we'll be expecting on our discussion segments. And as usual, we have Cecile, who will be with us for the media review segment. Welcome, Cecile.
Thank you very much, Dennis. On the media review segment, though it's been over a decade, let's say about 15 years since Nigeria consciously embraced ICT for economic expansion and development, there is no argument that indeed much has changed for the better in this area. But there are so many areas left uncovered, so many milestones yet to be achieved. How much has the media been involved in this area all the while? This will be our focus on the media review segment.
Thank you, Cecile. Certainly in this global village that we're ever increasingly living in, the importance of ICT cannot be overstated. We look forward to that discussion, but up next will be the discussion segment. Welcome to the discussion segment of the program to discuss and analyze key issues emanating from the ongoing United Nations General Assembly, the 73rd edition. I have with me in the studio Dr. Peter Ademu-Ete, who is the Managing Director at Nentis Communications Limited. You're welcome to Insight, sir.
It's my pleasure, Dennis.
All right, sir. And also with me in the studio is Mr. Ayo Akonji, who is a Foreign Affairs Analyst. You're also welcome to Insight.
Thanks for having me, Dennis.
Welcome to you both. So, obviously, Mr. President has arrived in New York with a delegation for the 73rd United Nations General Assembly. Dr. Peter Ademu-Ete, just give us what are your initial comments with regards to this 73rd edition of the sitting?
I see Mr. President participation in this 73rd session of the United Nations General Assembly as a veritable platform to play some agenda-setting roles and also generate international support and collaboration with Nigeria in some key areas that are hindering our national development and peace. For example, according to the Senior Special Advisor, the Media Advisor, additional, he says the President will be canvassing support, international support for the fight against corruption. He will also be seeking international collaboration for repatriation of our looted funds and assets outside the shores of Nigeria. Also, he will be talking about support for counter-terrorism and insurgency in the Northeast, as well as seeking opportunities to see how the international community could support in the resettlement of IDPs. And more importantly, he will be canvassing for reforms at the United Nations, especially the expansion of the Security Council from the 5 permanent members to a more robust and expanded one that will reflect a geographical and equitable representation. Because the theme of this year's Assembly is making United Nations relevant to all people. And if it must be relevant to all people, then representation is key. The situation now where you have the 5 permanent members, Russia, China, France, United Kingdom, and US, and you could now see that the 5 permanent members, no country in Africa is a permanent member of the Security Council, none in South America and even Australia. So I think the agenda-setting roles the President will be playing there will go a long way in helping us as a nation.
All right.
Yes.
Mr. Ayo, when they touched down in New York some hours ago, the advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Femi Adesina, he said when the President can address through the UN platform, he better bring everything important to him and to his country. This statement in itself highlights just how important this General Assembly is to Nigeria. So in your own words, just tell us what Mr. President can do in terms of his address and to favor, Nigeria.
Yeah, I think Mr. President has been very vocal and vocal in putting Nigeria at the forefront anytime he attends the General Assembly meeting, which is a ritual now every September from 2015 till now. Yeah. And the focal part of this discussion, like he rightly enumerated, is one is going to be on asset recovery. And mind you, you know that Nigeria signed an agreement, the three-party agreement with Nigeria, US, and Swiss on the global action for recovery of tracing of assets. Yeah. And then we were able to get allotted funds, and we were able to get about $300 million from the Abuja and Alemisi loot. So there are more to that. And now the UN is a forum where you have about 197 countries that are there. So aside making an international pledge to fight this, he's going to have a sideline meeting with different world leaders and African leaders, and those strengthen their bilateral agreements on trade and anti-corruption, on health. And one very important issue again is the fact that tuberculosis is a very serious issue. There's going to be a high-level discussion on that, led by World Health Organization, because they said Nigeria is the 7th country ranking on the world and 2nd in Africa. So there's a lot of it. And there's a campaign that has been spearheaded by the WHO to end tuberculosis, and Nigeria is on that, so they'll find a way to see how we can find. That's
going to be part of the side.
High-level meeting, and also he's going to make a pledge on the expansion, like he rightly said, of the United Nations Security Council. Yeah. I mean, since the United Nations was created in 1945, it was a membership of over 71 countries, and now you have over 197 countries. And from that time till now, there's been no expansion. Those 5 countries actually see what happens. And we all know that the United Nations Security Council is the most powerful organ of the United Nations, 1. 2, currently right now, about 70% of action from the United Security Council is in Africa. It's either South Sudan, Burundi, Congo. So why won't we have an African country speak or take action for African continent?
It would make more sense.
It would make more sense that way.
An African nation
having, and Nigeria on our own has a global badge of honor. As an independent country in Africa and the world, has been playing so much to restore peace in the world. Yeah. And if you look at it from the geopolitical point of zone, West Africa or the entire African continent, we actually have put our mouth where our money is. So I think we deserve to be there, and I'm happy. For the past 25 years, Nigeria has been championing a reform. The United Nations cannot be more united or democratic by expanding this, and we expect that the president will make a very good campaign for us on that. Another part, again, the president, which he has been doing everywhere, is raising advocacy on the Lake Chad, preceding Lake Chad Basin. Yeah. He's also going to see how he's going to use this forum to see how they can, because we're talking about insurgency, how they can actually bring in more support to Lake Chad. And for counter-insurgency also, terrorism. Right now Boko Haram is factionalized. We have the ISWA, international ISIS in West Africa, and you have Boko Haram. So it's taking an international phenomenon. And then you have global superpowers there who are also fighting this menace. So of course it's going to make a high case for Nigeria. That's how we can collaborate with all other powerful countries to see how we can degrade and decimate these dying, kicking insurgents that are trying to cause a problem in the country and then the region at large.
All right, Dr. Peter, obviously Mr. President is now the current chairman of ECOWAS. Yeah. And it's obviously not going to be just issues around that concern Nigeria only, but as the ECOWAS chairman, he'll also be focusing on issues in the West African sub-region. Just talk to us a bit more about what we expect to hear from him on that.
Yeah, the issue of irregular migration. Yeah. ECOWAS has a free movement protocol. And being the chairman of ECOWAS, he's treading on the tightrope, because the bulk of the security challenges we have in this country has to bother with this irregular migration, and that he will need to seek international collaboration to see how we can minimize it, and then use ECOWAS sub-region to promote welfare for the citizenry. I mentioned about the issue of receding of the Lake Chad region. Most of these things, they require international support and collaboration. The Lake Chad has been home to millions of people. With the receding of the climatic changes and the recession of around Lake Chad region, is pushing a lot of triggering a lot of movements across the West Africa sub-region. And I also believe that by the sidelines, he will be talking about the economic situation in West Africa. Nigeria, and anything that touches Nigeria, touches the rest of West Africa, by the obvious role of the role we play in terms of our resources, in terms of our population, and in terms of our leadership role in the sub-region. So I believe that all in all, the president is like double hatting. He will be speaking as president of Nigeria and also as the chairman of ECOWAS, trying to look at the economy of the sub-region, issues of economic integration, issues of security in the sub-region. What collaboration can be international community could bring to bear to support his efforts as chairman of ECOWAS to ensure safety of lives or property, and more so that the insurgency is not only in Nigeria. You have in Mali, they have across the West African sub-region. There are some pockets of insurgency here and there, and those things are triggering the irregular migration that is also compounding the already existing problem. So I think by the sidelines and even by the address he would deliver, it will be an opportunity for him to double hat and be able to generate international support and collaboration to help West Africa as well, in general, and Nigeria in particular, resolve some of these lingering challenges facing our economic and socio-political development.
Since Mr. President, came into office in 2015, he touched on these issues. How would you assess over the last 3 years the progress made with the present administration with regards to minimizing these security issues and
security issues, I think we have made some progress. If you remember, in the previous administration, the US was not willing to sell arms to the Nigerian government. And because of these interactions, you can see that a lot of arms have been sold to us. And in terms of support, in terms of military support to Nigeria, and also even the issue of loot recovery, I mentioned the tripartite agreement signed is yielding fruits. A lot of funds are being recovered. But we are not yet there. Because in the issue of asset recovery and looted funds recovery, my take on it is that the Western nations are trying, but they are not trying with all their hearts. To me, they are not giving the president the kind of 100% support he would have required because of the cumbersome administrative and legal processes in the repatriation of the looted funds. I expect that as the president goes to harp and re-harp on it, because this has been on since 2015, his first attendance at the United Nations General Assembly. I would have expected by now the bulk of those looted funds would have been in our coffers now, but not all have all is it to come in. So I'm saying that the Western nations also have their own interests in terms of the administrative cumbersome processes, and the president has not received the kind of full support he would have required. But I think this opportunity will be able to help him accelerate the process of the recovery and then generating more support from these Western nations to help in terms of supporting fight against terrorism, repatriation of looted funds, etc., etc.
All right.
Yep.
Mr. Ayo, just tell us in your own view, how would you assess the world? How does the world work in terms of equitable trade where Nigeria is concerned? We talk about the so-called economic giants and who, for the most part, work for their own benefit. What will you expect from Mr. President in regards to balancing trade issues?
Yeah, I think Mr. President will be very pragmatic, one, and he's going to be very patriotic. All he cares about right now is how he can bring the right investment to Nigeria. And we can see that actually happening. We're not confined to just the West. We're to everybody, the West, to the East, to the South. So that quote he said, I'm for everybody, I'm for nobody. It actually comes apt here. All he cares about is see how can we get investment in the country. And then he was at China sometimes back. We saw what happened. Over $10 billion coming to Nigeria for different sectors of the economy, and it's actually helped it to calm down, to trickle down to the economy, and then rebase our economy to grow up. We expect to see so much at the same time too when it's going to be in New York right now. And also, if I have to assess, I think he has done it. He's been doing a lot. It's not easy. The global economy has been a bit fractured with the fact that oil prices dipped and crisis all there. It's good to hear that it's increased. I think it's about $86 per barrel right now. We hope it gets about 100. But even with that, we can see what's going on in the country. We've seen FDI coming to the country. Before he traveled, we've seen previous leaders that were here, from the German leader to the British Prime Minister to the French President to South African. So people are actually coming in, and he's actually expanding the horoscope and the horizon to see how Nigeria is fertile for investment. And for corruption, so you see, the fact is that we've had grand corruption in this country. Not the corruption of 100 million naira. Grand corruption. See what's happening in Italy about the Malabu oil deal. First time they've had the first conviction of, and they were able to trade about $100 million. Mind you that we got 70 million pounds from the UK repatriated back to us. So these things are they are intertwined. There's a lot actually that goes on. It's not just, you can't just get the money like that, like you actually rightly said. Yeah. We need to have our mutual legal assistance with this country. We need the cooperation of our judiciary to come in. So we need all arms of government to be on the table for this fight. Because this fight is for survival of this country. Without that, we can't move forward. And you have few individuals that are taking the entire money. I'll give you an example of how far corruption can go. Remember in 2009, 2010, the government then was able to bail out banks with about 5 trillion naira. And it's about 30 individuals. Now our budget now is about 9 trillion naira. So if one person has about that amount of money, if we could be able to bail out just 30 people with that amount of money, then do you imagine the grant that we're having right now? Malabu is about over $1 billion, which is about close to 1 trillion naira. So we need the media to continue having more light on corruption. The president has made this very clear. And he has made the fact that, you see, people really didn't understand that Lake Chad Basin played a significant role in the headless crisis we're having and when the Boko Haram insurgencies were having. Until he continued happen. And then sometimes last month in Berlin, they were able to raise about $1 billion for Lake Chad Basin, for the Chad region to actually invest there and see how they can bring livelihood there. So the president is actually putting focal light on focal areas that has to do millions of Nigerian survival, and then getting the requisite support from the national community, the active community. So I think we can give him a kudos on that, and we're expecting to do more. And we expect also leadership of the foreign countries to actually come and assist Nigeria more. Because, of course, when you have the money in their own country, it helps grow their economy. You know, sure. Yeah, it does. So we have to be very patriotic. But let's support the government, let's support individuals, let's support institutions, and let's see how this money can be back to grow our country forward.
All right, Dr. Peter, obviously, from what Mr. Ayo said, it's a lot to do with Mr. President harping, and not just Mr. President, Nigerians in general, and especially the media, harping on the critical issues that need to be addressed for the improvements of the nation. How would you see how the international community how receptive do you think they will be with regards to President Buhari's?
Well, you know, the United Nations General Assembly is a platform of moral suasion. It's all about persuasion. Yeah. It's all about communicating to engender opinion, attitude, and behavior change. It's all about helping people to shift positions in your favor. I believe, and also most of those relationships are mutually beneficial. For one, the Western nations know that Nigeria is key to them, just like the Eastern nations. Yeah. Two, why is Nigeria key to them? Apart from political leadership in Africa, or even the black population worldwide, we have our oil. Well, Nigeria is also a big market to them. Nigeria also has a lot of other mineral resources. And Nigeria, in terms of our population, 180 million people, you cannot just wish us away. So I believe that many of these foreign countries will receive the president's speech with enthusiasm, because the issues he'll be talking about are issues of mutual interest, are issues that will also benefit them too in the long run. Take for example, security. If we restore security, they support us and we get it right and fix the security challenge in this country, everybody is a winner. Because right now, for the past 5-6 years, nothing has, like in the Northeast, because of the insurgency, the economy of that area, the microeconomy has almost collapsed, you know, and there are many mineral resources there, there are huge market there that they could penetrate. So what I'm saying in essence is that the president's speech will be well received, and not because they love us without facts, but it is also in their own interest. Because come to think of it, if Nigeria is destabilized, the whole of West African sub-region will be destabilized, even down to Central and East Africa, by the reason of our population. Nigeria has been a haven for others in Africa to come to live and do business. So when the security is fixed, our economy will blossom, and they also will benefit from it. So, and like the issue of the Chad region, once it is also fixed, you know, is a win-win situation for us and the foreign countries. So I think I'm very optimistic that the president's speech will be well received, not just being received, to be believed on and then acted upon in our favor by the international community.
Well, Mr. President certainly has an antecedent of being persuasive, and his diplomatic skills are certainly, and his sense of humor is certainly
sure.
well established. Mr. Ayo,
yes,
obviously we've seen in recent weeks the perennial, annual, whatever you want to call it, issue of flooding in Nigeria. We would expect Mr. President to touch on climate change issues as well when he makes his address, as well as other world leaders will be making addresses concerning climate change. What do you expect from Mr. President in regards to what is happening in Nigeria on an annual basis this time of the year with flooding?
Well, that's true. He's going to talk about climate change, and mind you, we signed the Paris Agreement. So already it means we've domesticated the protocols of Paris Agreement about going to cut out emission, but in exchange for that, certain investment has to come into the country, and that's agreed upon. I think it's going to go back there and then reiterate this to the national donor communities, and by extension donor communities, and by extension private sectors, and who will be attending there too, and happen it because it's becoming a very serious receding decimal in the country. And also internally, as the putting mechanism, I think they've been able to mention about some states that are national emergency cases for flood. They've activated NEMA activated the military. There's about proof fund of 3 billion naira that's kept somewhere for emergency to help them, evacuate people that are affected by this flood, depending when the level goes down. So I think the government is proactive right now than it used to be before, than reactive. So it anticipated this happening, and then mechanism has been on ground to guide it. And also he's going to go back there and then also, make more advocacy for investment into this that actually help us curb flooding, which is so much, which impact is really very disadvantage on the people that actually experience it.
Dr. Peter, obviously, like I said, this is something we talk about every year. Obviously, it's not an issue only for governments to address. What, in your view, do the ordinary citizens need to do with regards to curbing this annual issue that we face in the country?
Well, I'll take a step back to talk about government responsibility. The flooding has been an annual disaster for many, many years now. But I'm here to see any sustainable plan in place to say this is going to happen, these are the plans. And then those plans, they have not been communicated. For instance, you go to the banks of River Benue, where you have a lot of fishing settlements, people building close to the river. I think that it is government's duty to do enough awareness campaign to educate the citizenry to say, look, move away from these areas. Because it's easy to enforce it, and it's not about just awareness. After the awareness campaign, you could give them a deadline whereby you could even have to carry out some demolition to save lives. Number two, the awareness campaign will also educate the citizens on their roles in preventing this flooding. In most of the city centers, I'm dealing on the citizens now, we are just behaving like, sometimes I don't intend to insult anybody, like animals in the bush. What do I mean? Government will do a drainage that should channel water away, and then we now turn that drainage into a refuse dump. So when the flood comes now, the flood has nowhere to go. The drains and the channels and the canals are blocked. So I think that the citizenry will have a role to play in ensuring that we don't block drainages, that we also support government action in clearing drainages and maintain healthy environmental sanitation habits, so that we don't use our hands to cause ourselves self-injury. Government alone cannot do it. We as citizens, we have to partner with government to achieve, especially in the area of maintaining the drains and even providing drainages in our neighborhoods where necessary. And third point, I also expect corporate organizations to also, is a kind of a PPP, a private-public partnership. Corporate organizations who are making billions of naira as profits, they should also contribute, because this is the environment in which they operate. They should also contribute money. I'm not asking them to give the money to government. There are several non-NGOs, non-governmental organizations who are experts in environmental management that they can partner with to support government efforts in terms of awareness creation, in terms of building of drains and drainages or canals, or even dredging of rivers or streams to ensure that this does not repeat year in, year out.
Can I just say some few things on what Dr. spoke about? I think we also have to commend the ecological fund office because they've been doing so much. I think I went to some talk with them around and I saw what they were doing. I was so surprised. They've been dredging gully erosions, clearing the entire place, making channels of water to flow through to come to the bank. And this has actually helped tremendously in curbing the flooding. We expect, like I said, we expect the big giants of private companies as a corporate social responsibility from them to come in and intervene. So, yeah, so back to the matter of HIV. The president's wife has an NGO, the Future Assured, which has been using as a tool to get through to people across the entire country, especially the ladies, the girl child, helping them with the right equipment and HIV, AIDS, and tuberculosis, and also trying to see how they can champion the cause. Like we had a very centralized campaign against polio back then. I think we're trying to do the same thing with tuberculosis, so we can eradicate it because its prevalence is so much in the country, and then it's actually it's around the youth demographic, the promising, the active youth demographic. So it has to be a way to cop that, or else it can take a trench into our strength of the economy, and that will actually affect us. I think she's going to sit with the top agencies there, led by the World Health Organization, to find a sustainable pattern or a solution to this problem, and bring that back here under NGO as a pet project, and have it across the country and see how they can create more awareness for people, and probably get the machines that are needed. Because I think we have a tuberculosis center in Abuja and some other parts of the country. So more funding for the equipment, for the XGEM machine that is needed, and this actually help at least reduce these diseases that we're actually facing in the country.
All right. Dr. Peter, your take on what we expect from the First Lady when she gives her own little...
Well, the outcome of her engagements that I see a lot of international NGOs and donor agencies keen into her pet project, and keen to the challenges, social problems of tuberculosis and some other social ills in the country. Because as she goes there, she will meet with most of them one-on-one. They will ask a lot of questions, because one thing I know with the international community, they will not just throw their money at you. They would like to see what you are doing. They want to see your roadmap, the challenges, your roadmap towards addressing them. And they will be able to identify where they can come in to make little impact here and there. I'm sure that by the time she's done with her engagements there, the fight against tuberculosis, the fight against some other social ills of the society, even support for IDPs, care child education, some of those things that are dear to the First Lady. I believe that with an NGO that is structured in place, many of these donor agencies will be able to key into our vision by way of support in the implementation of the identified objectives.
All right.
Of the First Lady.
Okay. We're also expecting civil society organizations to be present at this General Assembly to be, to monitor and scrutinize everything that is being put on the table. So what do we want to see, and what do we hope to see from SCSOs?
For civil society, there are many in different sectors of the economy, as it were. Yeah. For example, about climate change, I expect many environmental NGOs to be very excited about it. And when we're talking about security, you have a lot of human rights NGOs, and we also have development NGOs that will be there. I believe that by this engagement and the sideline engagements by the president, a lot of NGOs will be brought on board. They will be made, the understanding will be made more deeper, and their opinions will even change. Because most of the time, many of the NGOs that criticize Nigeria, they don't have adequate facts. And by the president going there, putting the facts on the table, and some of the, don't forget also, the president went with a team. He's not even there alone. You have a lot of subject matter experts that will be able to provide additional information on the areas of climate change, areas of the internally displaced persons, humanitarian crisis. Some of these humanitarian NGOs, they will even be able to support government's effort in terms of helping the IDPs. And then you have some NGOs that are environmental NGOs that are interested in what is happening to the environment. So they will be able to key in some of the president's vision and what Nigeria is doing to address those key challenges in security. Even there are some NGOs that focus their searchlight on corruption and how to end it, so that the quality of lives of people can improve. So that one, they will be able to key into the president's agenda, and I think it will be good for us.
All right. Yes. Ayo, what would you say about the CSO's presence at the General Assembly?
I think it's very important to have the CSOs because they're like the third light into what's going on. You have them, like he rightly said, you have them in different stratas of the economy. We have like some like budgets for the economy that helps with data and information of money. You have some people called follow the money. So they look at investment made in different sectors and see how far this money is being invested. So I think we need to have them because we have the Minister of Environment who's there. So for like the environmental NGOs will be there. They'll be able to also make more advocacy. Because I remember when we had the issue with the humanitarian issues, there's a Buki, she has her own foundation that's there. She always goes and creates a lot of advocacy for the girl child education, for girls being used as suicide bombers in the Northeast and all that. So we need them to actually complement government's efforts there. To also ensure that government is not sleeping on our asses, so that they can be able to ensure that whatever you see out there is actually what you're implementing here. So we actually need them to be on ground for corruption, for security, for good, for human rights also too.
The Ministry of Health is there as well, and there's this. Just going back to the issue of health and combating killer diseases. The issue of funding is always a critical matter. What can he do in terms of side interactions with various organizations to build up funding to combat these diseases?
Yeah, I think he has a lot on his table to do. Already, the government already has the political will. Because if you look around, we took about 1% of our consolidated revenue to put into health, and also champion private health, primary health care across the country, which the Prime Minister has actually pushed champion. Now we're going to have a meeting with Bill Gates Foundation. Bill Gates Foundation has so much interest in Nigeria. They help us curb polio. So I guess the minister will come up with other primary health challenges that we're facing and say how can get more funding for them, which one of them is tuberculosis. And also, he can also rightly try and get donor agencies to bring in funds into the country. And also, before you bring in the country, you have to show what you as a country is doing. And we're investing so much into the health sector. So I think that would actually be a very good blueprint to present to them and see how we can actually turn them over here under the World Health Organization, the UNICEF, and all other health related institutions and NGOs and donor agencies to bring in the fund here. And I guess Bill Gates Foundation is doing so much because they have funding from other foundations into their own foundation.
Dr. Peter, you were talking earlier about reforms in the UN Security Council. I think this is quite an important issue. Just for the benefit of those who might not be aware, which are the 5 countries that are permanent members of the UN Security Council?
The 5 permanent members are China, Russia, France, United Kingdom, and United States.
Okay.
And that has been since the inception of the United Nations in 1945. Now, you know, there must be democracy in what we do. We have to democratize the structure. You know, exclusion does not help any organization. You know, you could think globally and act locally. Now, a situation where the whole of Africa, no African country is a permanent member of the Security Council. No South American country is a member of the Security Council. No, where Australia is a continent of its own, Australia is not a member of the Security. So what you have is just, if you look at the map, it's like in the northern hemisphere. It's like the total southern hemisphere, there is a hotbed of security challenges. No country is a member. And it's my own considered take, and in support of the president, that when we expand the Security Council to reflect geographical and regional representation, it makes it more equitable. And it also makes it more inclusive. And you bring more brains, more thinking, fresh thinking into security issues. Thinking that will be balanced, thinking that are realistic, thinking that are smart. Because it is very, it's like 2 sides of the coin. I'm here looking at one side of the coin. You are looking at the other side. I am not omnipresent to know what you are looking at. So the president's campaign for reforms at the United Nations as regards the Security Council, the expansion of the Security Council, for me, is going to bring a global gains. It's going to bring gains to the whole world, because it will help bring homegrown solutions, bring regional perspectives, bring to the table regional facts and figures that you may not even understand as an outsider from the regions that are currently being excluded. So with that, we'll be able to achieve more at the Security Council level. Having said that, the point he made about the point of our Minister of Health and then NGOs and what he has on his table, I want to put one fact on the table. Funding for donors, funding of health projects in Nigeria HIV/AIDS, tuberculosis, they have been in decline. So as the Minister of Health is there now, it's an opportunity because these people, they need to see, like I have said, what you are doing.
What in Nigeria doing, yes.
And they want to see compliance. They want to see governance around the funds. From the information I have unofficially, the reason for the decline in funding has been the issue of governance that has surrounded the funds released to us in previous years. Thank you.
I still want to talk about this Security Council issue. It's almost over 70 years now.
Yes.
It's just been 5 members. Why do you think that is?
Well, you know, it's human. It's human to think that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you are sitting on a comfortable chair, you understand now, and you exclude other people, and it's favoring you.
Yeah.
You don't want change. Everybody resists change. Because as for long as the big five are there, whatever they are doing is favoring them. Others who are excluded is like the hunter and the animals. Who hears the animals' own side of the story? It is the hunter's story that is heard.
Yeah.
So I think that the five, like trying to use their muzzle to keep it, the membership of the Security Council at 5, is about maybe self-interest, which I think the time has come for that self-interest to be diluted a little bit. I mean, bringing in maybe a country from Africa, which obviously should be Nigeria for obvious reasons, and looking at a country from South America, for example, I don't know whether it will be Brazil or any of the countries there, or even bringing in Australia, you know, to it. My people say fish cannot spoil soup. I mean, having more members, the more the merrier, and the more robust the membership is, the more effective the Security Council will be. Exclusion normally denies any organization the benefits of tapping into diverse talents. So, if the reason why the 5 has always remained 5, I think is more about personal preservation, self-interest. But the time has come now that we have to go past that goalpost and establish new agenda for the for peace in the world.
All right, Ayo. Well, obviously, self-interest is probably the paramount reason. How foreseeable do you think we'll see in additional additions to the UN Security Council?
Yeah, I think for that, I think one of the reason I felt the reason why we have 5 members there was that you know it has to do with geopolitical warfare we've been having. You know, we had a Cold War. So that was a huge thing that happened then. So that's when Russia came on board. But right now there's no longer Cold War. Now one other thing they're going to discuss about is actually denuclearization across different countries. So now it means reduce down your stocks of nukes. So it means we're making a peace and we're making a fast pace in progress of peace and stability. So and then as I was saying earlier, I said Africa is a continent. I'm Pan-African. Africa is a continent that has about over 50 countries. Now, 70% of the United Nations Security Council resolution has always been targeted towards Africa. So you can have UK, US, France, Russia, and China speaking on behalf of Africa. We need to have a permanent country, like you rightly said. Nigeria should be there, leader should be there, because Nigeria has actually taken Africa on her back. Credentials are there. We saw appetite in South Africa. We have Rhodesia in Zimbabwe, Namibia, all across the global. Even just recently, Gambia. What Ivory Coast? I mean, we have we have our CVs filled on our own badge of honor. Represented African continent, I can tell you that other African blocs will actually support Nigeria. Then I knew we had Senegal and Libya and South Africa, but if we have proper diplomacy, Africa has come together as a bloc. We have to have our leadership has to understand that we have to find a common ground and find one person to champion our cause there. Nothing's happening in Syria. Syria has reduced a little bit now. It's more of a proxy war between China, Russia, and US. But Africa is still the hotbed of crisis. The Sahel region has so much. Mali is having so much crisis. South Sudan is there. So I think it's the right time for us to have a unification of purpose. Let's have a united nation in its full letters. It should be democratic. We should have more countries. It should be diluted. More. We should have. You can't have a continent sidelined from there, and then all your actions from this body is on this continent. It means you'll be blindly. It won't be binded. And we also have to begin to actually, what's it called now? Ensure that our own bodies, like African Union and ECOWAS, are beefed up. You know, that's our second folder and third folder. But we have a stake, and we deserve to have a right on that permanent representative in the Security Council. And I hope And so I hope and pray soon.
Hopefully that'll be forthcoming sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Dr. Peter, just finally, just give us briefly what do you hope will be the takeaways once this 73rd session of the UN General Assembly is concluded?
I think the President's address will be another wake-up call on the world to say this is where we are in Nigeria, and these are the areas of collaboration we're asking from you. Number one, the area of fighting corruption. You know, corruption has been globalized. Yeah, and we need international collaboration to fight it. Number two, even terrorism has been globalized.
Absolutely.
You need international collaboration to fight terrorism. You cannot localize it again. Number three, the effects of corruption, effects of insurgency, which are like IDPs, insecurity, the economy in those areas that are paralyzed. You will also need international collaboration to see how you can resuscitate and manage the situation. Now we have a humanitarian crisis on our hands, and we need the international community to support us in managing that humanitarian crisis. And finally, the issue of climate change. I mean, we are feeling even the flooding is part of the climate change.
Absolutely.
So we need international collaboration, you know, to do that, and then the campaign for expansion of the Security Council. So those are the things, the outcomes that concrete outcomes, I think, that we're going to get from the President's outing.
All right.
At
Well,
this time.
okay. Well, I'd like to thank you both for your valuable insights on the 73rd session of the General Assembly. We certainly hope that at the conclusion of it all, we shall have positive gains that will impact the nation in a very positive light going forward. Well, I've been talking with Dr. Peter Ademu-Ete, who's the Managing Director, Enentis Communications Limited. Thank you, sir, for your time.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome, sir.
Thank you.
And also, having joined me in the studio for this critical discussion is Mr. Ayo Akonji, Foreign Affairs Analyst. Thank you for your contributions to this topic.
Thanks for having me, Dennis.
You're both very welcome. We hope to see you again in the nearest future to discuss more topical issues.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Up next will be the media review segment.
This is the media review segment of Insight. Now, observers within Nigeria would say Nigeria has grown remarkably in the ICT sector, let's say since in the last 2 decades. But according to the International Telecommunications Union Global Ranking Index for ICT Development 2017, Nigeria ranks 143. Now, how well are we doing ICT-wise? Well, to talk about this and its relations to the mass media, I have with me Tokpe Ojeme. He's a media professional. Tokpe, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Let's quickly go into the thrust of the matter. Would you agree, like many watchers and observers within Nigeria, that in the last 2 decades, we have grown remarkably, maybe economic-wise, in the ICT sector?
Well, the measurement of success is naturally judged by professionals. ITU is a very, very professional body, a body which, of course, if they give you any data, it's something you can take to the bank. If Nigeria ranks 143, that doesn't quite sound good. Thinking about what has been done for ICT, what Nigeria has put in, both the government and the people, and what has even happened, point of view of the things that the media has done in the past few years. So Nigeria should be doing better. Something must be wrong somewhere. It either has to be the use or the people using it. Something certainly would be wrong somewhere.
Yes, something certainly is wrong somewhere. We'll come back to that, and we'll come to talk about how much the media is helping to up the well, I would call it propaganda of the ICT. Now let's talk about in 2016, the federal government, they had a Aso Villa demo day at the villa where Mark Zuckerberg, of Facebook founder, also came around. Do you think that in any way acted as a tonic to help boost our tech world?
Well, if you think about where we're coming from and where we are now, surely we're not at the same place we were back in the years, say 2016, 2015, 2017, there's been some improvement. It tells why personality like Mark Zuckerberg will come to Nigeria. And of course, he also underscored the fact that there's been a lot of improvement from, and that's the reason why he visited. Also because he sees Nigeria as a major factor, a major market for what he does. So certainly there's some improvements in that regard.
Do you think we're not telling the story enough? Do you think the media is not following the trend of tech development, young innovators, innovations coming up and up? Did we need a Mark Zuckerberg to come around to help us start tell the story?
You know what they say in the old palace? If you don't tell your story, no one is likely going to tell it for you. The story of Nigeria has to be told better and will be told well by Nigerians. And so it probably is a wake-up call to the media that we need to talk about what we're doing a lot more. Because for me, as a media practitioner, the number of years I put in, I believe that Nigeria is doing quite well. But something must be wrong. You have to look at this index from different perspectives. You think about infrastructure, you think about the usage, you think about the people. Now, a point of view of infrastructure, of course, we have a long way to go. A point of view of the people, the human resource. I mean, Nigeria is good. Most of the people who do well in the ICT across the world are not just Africans, but most of them are Nigerians. So we need to tell this story again and again. We need to let the world know what we're doing. Because if we don't tell the story, we get such reports like that we got from the ITU.
So do you agree that we aren't telling the story? Now, for instance, look at the girls who just won the competition in the U.S., a recent competition in the U.S. I think they're Regina Patches girls. Their story was not until we had it in the foreign media, then we started telling the story. There are many of such people in Lagos. There are many everywhere. Annually, the NTA hosts the Science and Tech Expo for young people. Yeah. There are many young innovators coming up, but we don't seem to hear the story. Yeah, do you think that's part of the reason that we are lagging behind?
You would even remember that not too long ago, the current Minister of Communications did talk about what Nigeria has been doing in that regard. And young entrepreneurs and young developers, also the Minister of Technology highlighted recently when there was some technology fair done in Nigeria. So the issues will certainly be around telling the story, but not just telling the story. You could tell a story once. Question is, do you sustain? Do you sustain the story? So if you say today Nigeria is doing this well, and tomorrow you're not saying the same thing, and tomorrow you're talking about another country and another country, you find that when most people talk about what their country is doing or is wanting to do, there's some kind of sustenance of it. So tell the story now, keep telling the story, keep telling the progress, and that probably will take us to where we want to be.
And there's been talk of diversification from diversing away from oil. Do you think tech can be the new oil?
It is the way to go, no doubt about it. Think about everything that, for instance, the government and the people have said is probably the way out of oil. Number one on the list is always agriculture. But agriculture without technology will still pull us some way back. So if Nigeria wants to be able to stand with the Committee of Nations point of view of ICT, we need technology in every sphere. That includes agriculture, that includes every other thing we do. Technology-driven economy, technology-driven society is what we hold now. And think about the media. Technology also drives the media. That's why the social media seems to be the buzz, because for TV and radio, everything is now on the social media. At just the click of a button right in your hands, you see all you need to see.
Yes, and even with the digital switchover process, everybody, it's all traditional media is going technology, is going tech-wise.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, people say part of the reason why we aren't advancing so well in technology in the country, among some people though, it's that technology is expensive, ICT is expensive. Do you think that's a major drawback?
Absolutely. Earlier I talked about infrastructure. You can't take infrastructure out of the fray when you think about our success as a nation, our success as a people. Certainly when you think about infrastructure, then you think money, because funds would come in. So ICT is expensive. These days, just recently, Nigerians are beginning to get, the vibe of the importance of what's called the online call, which now you can even have on the table. If you're connected to the internet, you have the opportunity to make cheaper calls. So at the end of the day, you see again that it's ICT driven. So no doubt, our infrastructure is not where it's meant to be. A lot more money needs to be put in by stakeholders to the ICT world to take us where we should be.
Does it worry you that even though there are many pluses with, in ICT, in the ICT world, it also comes with stuff like cyberbullying, cybercrime, terrorism, and even many people say educationally it doesn't make young people want to go back to the books. They prefer going online to do all that. Does it worry you in any way?
You see, with every good thing comes some challenges. The issue is not the challenges. It's about how you manage the challenges. And I think that's where the question of change should come in. When there's attitudinal change, when there's a character that is meant to be, you're thinking of yourself not just as you, but you're thinking of yourself as a Nigerian. And you think about yourself not just within the sphere of you, but the whole body called Nigeria. It helps us to check our behavior in that regard. So certainly it will be important to take a close look at what we do against the challenges. If you say young people are not thinking about reading any longer, the question is, what's being done to encourage them to read? These days, most of the things you even want to read, you probably find them on the social media. So that what it means is put the stuff that they need to see out there, not fake news, not obscene pictures, not things that they don't want to see, but things that would help make our young people better.
Okay, just lastly and very briefly, the country, we're facing issue of hate speech and fake news. How would you, as a professional, advise that this be managed, especially with 2019 around the corner?
ICT is key to this, but not just the ICT, but the administrator. Don't forget, a human being has got to control the things that go out. Someone sends the fake news, then it circulates. So I think what's important first, it drives again to the issue of attitudinal change. If everyone understands the import of fake news and what it could do, the tendency to generate so much fire, then it helps people know what to do and what not to do. But let me also briefly say that our politicians have a key role to play, because technically, politicians, some people feel, they induce the people, they make the people do some of these things that they do. So don't spread fake news. Let's try and keep it real. Let's allow things work the way it should be and naturally well, the way the people want it to be. That will be democracy.
Thank you very much, Tope Ojeme. Well said. Don't spread fake news, even though we are all on the social media, or we use the ICT in various many ways. Please do not spread fake news. Try to monitor and know the source of your news. And in other areas of ICT that we might be involved in, let's use it positively for individual and national development. The program is still Insight. In a moment, I will be back on for the rest of the program.
So, Cecile, the importance of ICT obviously cannot be overstated in Nigeria and, of course, the world, in this global village we're living in. What are your final thoughts? Yeah,
my final thoughts that good to know that the government is actually embracing the initiative. The Vice President is making conscious effort at various fora to see that ICT is promoted, especially amongst young people. And on the part of many young people, people are also making conscious effort to see that we move with the trend, which is a good step in the right direction.
For sure that is, and Nigerians definitely have the capacity to take ICT to the next level in Nigeria. On that note, we've come to the end of this edition of the program Insights. My name is Dennis Adigunloye. From Cecile and myself and the entire production crew, thank you for watching.